is Corinne Gordon and my business is Age Old Knowledge Limited, and my ethos is where we left off. I am a strong Pan-Africanist and I love Ethiopia, and I'm here in solidarity with Ethiopia, the only continent on Africa, the only country in the continent that has not been colonized, and we need to keep it that way. I think America and all the other nations of the world who are trying to infiltrate and take over and even have any sort of say in Ethiopian politics, economics and society in general need to mind their own business. Ethiopia is one of the only places that has never been colonized, and it's strong, it's steeped in history, and it's the legacy, and that is the world. You know, the world started from these sacred regions of Africa, and we need to come together and find solidarity. I'm just so pleased and happy and embracing the new Center of Global African Initiative that's come into Ethiopia, and I would like to contribute and support wholeheartedly, and I think we need to come together as nations, and we can do this on our own. We have all the resources. We do not need any intervention from any other country and continent, and our degradation is creating a windfall of other atrocities globally for people in the diaspora. Africa is ours, and it is our legacy to protect and to govern of our own accordance, and I strongly believe all these things.
Oh, thank you very much. Ethiopia has been on everyone's mind recently, but I want to talk specifically about the fact that Ethiopia has always been in the leadership position in Africa for over half a century. I'm starting with the Organization of African Unity, which of course the great Haile Selassie was one of the founding members of. But I'm going to come back to today, because basically a lot of people have not understood the fact that Ethiopia is a rising star in Africa. The reason why we now have what we call turmoil with the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, the TPLF, I'm sure everybody knows about it. They have been seen on, well, not only on social media, they have also been seen on the Western media, stories about Ethiopia. But we need to make those stories and take them into perspective and tell the truth. Ethiopia is a peaceful country, has always been one. If it had not been a peaceful country, there would be no reason why the Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, would have been given a Nobel Peace Prize in 2019. So we must take this into context and understand that what is happening in Ethiopia is outside influence. I would rather use that outside influence and say it's Western influence, because it's quite clear that even the Eritreans are in support of the current Prime Minister to ensure that the Tigrayan people, who obviously say that basically they want autonomy, were initially those set of people who were part for almost 20 to 30 years. They held sway on Ethiopian politics. The Tigrayan people, I love them, but they only are close to 8 to 9% of the total population of Ethiopia. So we cannot, in Africa, have a situation where 10% of the population holds the rest 90% of a nation to ransom. It is not well, and we are Africans. Ethiopians know how to resolve their issues without any outside influence. That is one of the things that I want to say, because basically in Africa we have situations where if there's a brother fight, well, if there's any skirmish or problems with one brother against the other, we have our ways in Africa, and one of our ways is this. If one king sees that he's having a fight with the other one, he says, look, I have a daughter here and you have a son. Let us end this war. I give my daughter to your son and let us be friends. That is how we built Africa. And Africa needs to find African solutions to African problems. And I believe Ethiopia is one of the places that can do this. And hence I'm here today to join with the Ethiopian embassy. I'm very pleased that the Ethiopian embassy is taking a lead again in these issues of understanding that here, not only in UK, but around the world where we do have black people, we need to understand this. And I'm really proud of the current Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed. I'm really proud of him. He has taken up the mantle and said, I am going to the war front. That is the way generals behave. That is a man who shows that he loves his people. He's not just going to sit in a palace while there's trouble and more or less warring factions in his nation. That actually shows the world that he's ready for peace. And that's the reason why he got his Nobel Peace Prize. My reaction on the Ethiopian Dam is very simple. The Ethiopian Dam, the building of that, and I think is one of the largest in Africa, if not the largest, is very important to the economic survival of not only Ethiopia, but that entire region. The reason why there's a problem with the dam, or with the building of the dam, is this. Ethiopia is setting itself up as a global leader. The Western world don't really like when they see African countries leading the way in technology or in power. Anything to do with a dam is technology and power. And once you equip a people with power, you have given them energy. You have given them industry. You have given them commerce. You've given them all things to make them a great nation. And I think that's one of the reasons why I strongly feel that the West are interfering in the development progress of Ethiopia in order to render them a failed state. But Ethiopia is not a failed state. We all know that. But I think most of all, one of the reasons why I feel the West are interfering is because they see that Ethiopia does not rely on them for the finances, especially from the IMF, the World Bank, or the EU. Ethiopia has sought China as a preferable partner with cheap, better offering loans at 2% compared to Europe, which is almost 25%. As a businessman, I wouldn't go for any interest rate on a loan that is 25%. I would go for 2%. But not only that, China provides a technical partnership to Ethiopia, which is essential and pivotal to development. The West only give you a loan and they don't provide you the technical partnership. So you can actually see that as a win-win for Ethiopia. And I think the dam, once completed, will provide the necessary energy to really kickstart a technological revolution in the eastern part of Africa. And that is going to spread to the west and to the south.
Ethiopia. So
Global Black Heritage Centre in Ethiopia. I think it's a fantastic project and I fully support it. Learning today the history of Ethiopia, the first place where we find that most oldest bones is there. So we have to establish that can be the centre of Africa where all the diaspora can return and visit a place like that. It's a fantastic initiative.
Yeah.
Well, it's very disruptive and it's a classic tool from the West because there are so many resources in Africa and the divide and conquer rule of thumb is very much a Western tool, and so they do interfere in whenever a country like Ethiopia or wherever it may be across Africa wants to do for self. They want to interfere and interrupt these kind of progressions, and it's a very common tactic so that they can be in there and control the resources. To be very frank about it, this is what we understand is going on. So it's very important that the diaspora can support this message and be very vocal about, back off to the West. Let Africans do for self. We're very capable, and our history shows this. So yeah, that's my opinion personally about that.
With no mud, no wood, and no cement. You can't find anything like this in the rest of the world. You are all blessed because you are here. This place was built by God.
St. George's Day, pilgrims gather to celebrate a faith that has endured here for 16 centuries. These Christians claimed that God brought the Ark of the Covenant and the tablets of the Ten Commandments to their land. On holy days today, priests carry on their heads replicas of the tablets, wrapped in gilded cloth. The people of Ethiopia have been carving churches out of mountains for more than 1,000 years. But the 11 churches of Lalibela symbolize their achievement to the outside world.
Many states in Africa have been called failed states. But the question I'm asking, how can you manage if from the beginning they call you failed state, they set you up to fail? If you look at it in the international relations, each state is a unitary element, which means that there is no hierarchy between states in the international relations. Each state has got its own sovereignty. Each state has got the ability to make its own decision. Normally that's the way it is in international relations. So the state has got the sovereign power to look after its own people, to create economic opportunity for its people, to preserve peace in the country. That's one of the attributes of the sovereignty power of the country. But how a country can manage this when other states, other more powerful states, are interfering into their internal affairs? How? And then you call them failed state when you don't give them a chance to be independent and plan positive goals for their future. That's not acceptable. And one thing is coming. The world is changing. What has happened before is obsolete. Now we are more interconnected. The world is interdependent. And if I take the case of Ethiopia, the new government in Ethiopia have got good aspiration, good intention for its people. However, it is difficult for it's a challenge. It becomes suddenly a challenge for them. Why? We should ask ourselves why. Why dividing people? The new leader of Ethiopia his intention is to unite. We have seen that with Eritrea. Yeah, he's got the Nobel Prize. The Nobel Prize. He's got the intention to make peace, to unite. So how come suddenly there's a situation of conflict in Ethiopia and the population is divided? It must be a reason of resources or other reasons, but the main factor we can see is that people are displaced within Ethiopia because of the conflict, and people are not united. A society or a country is strong when the family situation or the unity between the people is strong. And this is disrupting Ethiopia. Ethiopia has got a good aspiration. Ethiopia is the origin of our civilization. The first woman, the fossil of the first woman on earth was found in Ethiopia, Lucy. And we are worried because if we are trying to disrupt Ethiopia, it's like you are disrupting the origin of Africa. That's the way I see it. I think this is the situation of interference has been for so many decades we have this situation. And not only Africans are saying the Western has to stop, not only Africans, the whole world is saying that this needs to stop. Because the whole world is more interconnected, as I said earlier. The whole world understands what's happening. The whole world are not children anymore. We have information circulating. We have documentary from the internet. You can find out what's happening in different parts of the world. The world is more interconnected, and we cannot lie anymore to people in the world. So not just Africans are saying this needs to stop. The whole world can see, and it's difficult to lie to the whole world. It is time to give chances to African governments who have good aspiration for the well-being of their people. It is time to give a chance to African governments to improve the infrastructure, improve the education of the children. The children are the future. The African children are the future of Africa. Help them to improve. So it has to stop to disrupt them, create conflict, to prevent them from looking after their own people. This has to stop. This hypothetical situation where they say, oh, it's a failed state, because we are not even giving a chance to them to look after their people.
Well, I'm very, very delighted about it. Very, very excited. I can't think of a better country in Africa for this centre to be placed because of the history of Ethiopia and the impact it has had on the world, and the fact that it's the only African country that wasn't conquered by the colonialists in those days, unlike my country of origin. So I'm looking forward to seeing it being seen as a focal point for the unification of Africa, and for us to come together towards looking back at all the good that we've done that has been buried and hidden, and looking forward to all the good we can do and the improvements we can make in all our countries, having Ethiopia as a focal point. That would be lovely.
Yeah, but the point is, as you said, we are going to leave the past and create a new pride for black people.
Definitely.
But
see, not all our past is bad.
Yeah.
Our past is very good, but we don't know it.
Yeah.
That good past.
Yeah.
I want everyone to know that good past. We started everything. We started maths. We started science. We started architecture. We started all of that. That's our past as well, not just the bad bits. And I'm just learning some of that. And I shouldn't just be knowing this now. I should have known that before. And that's what I mean by the past. Not the bad past, but the good past that we started. because we are the beginning. We are the first humans, and we are the first of everything.
Yeah, but when you try to do that, there is another form of second colonization in different form. How do we resist that?
Well, we definitely must come together and resist that in all possible ways, because now we know what's going on. When it happened the first time, we didn't understand. They scattered us, they divided us, and we saw our brothers and our sisters as enemies. Today, we know, because they've done it before. It should not be allowed to happen again. We should unite and not allow them to divide us, no matter what our conflicts are between us. When we're dealing with a common foe, we should come together.
About their interference, the West now, they are intervening. They are just involving with them, and they don't respect sovereignty. They talk about their own sovereignty, but they don't respect the African sovereignty.
Yes, but they never have. We need to establish our sovereignty, not wait for them to respect it. They have never respected our sovereignty. They never respected our land in the beginning. They turned up, no passport, no immigration. They took what they wanted. They killed us. They've never respected our sovereignty. We need to establish our sovereignty and let them know that we are a sovereign nation, we are a sovereign continent, and that they should not interfere.
Thank you so much.
Its commitment is reflected not just in the words of its leaders and intellectuals. It is also reflected in the historic deeds of its people, who, throughout their lives, promoted and defended the interests of Africa and its heritage. Ladies and gentlemen, let me mention some of the fundamental historical bases that define Ethiopia as the guardian of Black history and civilization. First of all, Ethiopia is the only African nation that stood up to colonialism, fiercely resisted and defeated it in every field of battle. The victory of Adwa, among others, had long been serving to galvanize all Black people around the world against slavery and colonialism. Christian communities in Southern Africa who suffered racial segregation for practicing their faith in white churches commenced the movement of Ethiopianism because they found a unifying force in Ethiopia following the victory of Adwa. Secondly, when the newly independent African states discussed over what form and extent of unity Africa should take after the total independence of its states, it was Ethiopia's Emperor Haile Selassie who brought contending factions together and enabled them to establish the organization of the African Unity, OAU. Today, Ethiopia, at the headquarters of the African Union and other international organizations, has got a lot to offer to the Black people around the world. Thirdly, Ethiopia supported the fight against apartheid and greatly contributed to the total liberation of Southern Africa. It provided both material and moral support to South Africans, remained steadfast to its principle of African and steered the anti-colonial movement on all platforms where it got the privilege to be listened to. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatness of Ethiopia's role and contribution in the history of Africa makes me believe that no other country is better placed to preserve and showcase African culture and history than itself. But today, a complex and multifaceted war is waged against Ethiopia and its statehood. The struggle against the last vestige of colonialism, I prefer to call it neo-colonialism, is still alive and ongoing. The direct assault and misinterpretation being inflicted by most Western media on the sovereignty of Ethiopia demand the creation of an alternative Black-centric narrative. This war, however limited, seems in its scope. It is a war declared against Black nations, born out of a colonialist tendency of seeing Africans as subordinate and lesser human beings who could not determine their destinies on their own. Of course, civilizing Africa was a safe and certain rationale used by the first white men who set foot in our continent. We didn't realize they came to enslave us until they carved out Africa into small tribal communities under their sphere of influence. And now, however well-intentioned they say they are, if they deny us our dignity and sovereignty, they are only grooming us to a second phase colonization in a manner appropriate for this time. So, we need to wake up, remember the long path we traversed to preserve our dignity and stand in solidarity with Ethiopia and other African nations. Ladies and gentlemen, today the great powers scramble for Africa has taken a different form. It seems peaceful competition over economy, political, security, etc. interest while ostensibly putting African countries on equal footing. Nevertheless, their engagements with individual states are practically flawed and have a contemptuous and patronizing tendency. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, I thank you and the TDC Consulting for believing in the potential of Ethiopia to safeguard and exhibit the history of Africa and all Black people through the establishment of the Global Black Center in Addis Ababa. I would like to assure you all that Ethiopia will maintain its historic responsibility of defending the history, culture, heritage and identity of Africa, and wish you a successful deliberation. I thank you.
መጀመሪያ አመሰግናለሁ ኤምባሲውን ኤምባሲ ሰራተኞችን እንደዚሁም የኤምባሲ ሚዲያን ከሁሉም በላይ ደግሞ አምባሳደር ተፈሪ መለስን በዚህ ጉዳይ በቀጥታ በማገዝ እዚህ ደረጃ እንዲያደርስ ስላደረሰ እናመሰግናለን። በአጠቃላይ እየታሰበው ይሄ ለረጅም ጊዜ ሲሰራበት የቆየ ነው። በቅርቡ ካሉ ከኤምባሲውም ጋር ስንሰራበት የቆየ ነው እና አላማችን የብላክ ዳያስፖራን አሰባስበን የብላክ ዳያስፖራ ሐሳቡና አጠቃላይ ምኞቱ ምን እንደሆነ በዛው ስለኖርንበት ስለምናቅ ባለን ኔትወርክ በቅርብ ስንሰራ ስለነበር ብላክ ዳያስፖራ የሚያስፈልገው አንድ ወጥ የሆነ የዳያስፖራን ድምጽ ማሰማት የሚያስችል አንድ ኢንስቲትዩሽን ተቋም እንዲኖር የሚፈልግ በመሆኑ በዚህ ኤሪያ ፕሮጀክት ሰርተን አስበንበት ባለን ኔትወርክ ብላክ ዳያስፖራ ውስጥ ገብተን የዛሬው ፕሮጀክት ለማካሄድ ችለናል። ይሄ የመጀመሪያ ፕሮጀክት ነው። ምንድነው ዓላማው? በኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ግሎባል ብላክ ሂስትሪ ኤንድ ሄሪቴጅ ሴንተር እንዲቋቋምና ህይወት ኖሮት ራሱ በራሱ እንዲሄድ ለማድረግ የሚያስችል ነው። ከዚህም በስተጀርባ ታዋቂና ተጽዕኖ ፈጣሪ የሆኑ የብላክ ዳያስፖራ እና የብላክ ሂስትሪ ኦቶሪቲ የተሳተፉበት እንደዚሁም ደግሞ አምሮበት የገቡበት ወደፊትም ለማስቀጠልም ያሰቡበት ጉዳይ ስለሆነ ያንን በዛሬው ቀን ለማሳካት ችለናል። ተሳክቷል ብዬ አምናለሁ። በአጠቃላይ ዛሬ እንደዚሁ ኮሚኒኬ ይኖራል። እንደዚሁም ደግሞ በተጨማሪ መጨረሻ ላይ ኃላፊነቱን በኢትዮጵያ በአምባሳደራችን በኩል ለኢትዮጵያ መንግስት በኢትዮጵያ መንግስት በኩል ለአፍሪካ ዩኒየን እንደዚሁም ለማድረግ እየተሰራበት ነው ያለው። አምነንበታል። እንደዚሁም ደግሞ የቀድሞ የኢትዮጵያ ጠቅላይ ሚኒስትር የሆኑት አቶ ክቡር ኃይለማርያም ደሳለኝ በቀጥታ ፕሮጀክቱን በማገዛቸው መቼም ምንም በቃላት የሚገለጽ ምስጋና አይበቃም እና ለሀገራቸው ስለሰሩ እናመሰግናቸዋለን። ጀምረናል፣ እንቀጥላለን። የተመሰረተውም የተጀመረውም በኢትዮጵያ ምድር በለንደን ነው። ኢትዮጵያ ተአምረኛ ሀገር ናት። ችግር በመኖራት ጊዜ ሁሌ ጓደኞች ይኖራታል። ችግር በመኖራት ጊዜ ሁል ጊዜ ወዳጆች ይኖራታል። ዛሬ ባለንበት ተጽዕኖ ውስጥ እያለን ይህንን የሚያህል በዲፕሎማሲው በፓብሊክ ዲፕሎማሲው በስራ ዋጋ ያለው ስራ መስራት ችለናል። ይህ የሆነው በእኔ በግለሰብ አይደለም፣ በኤምባሲ ወዳጆቻችን በኤምባሲ ሙሉ ትብብር እንደዚሁም በአቶ ያሬድ ያደረጋችሁልን በጣም ከፍ ያለ ምስጋና አቀርባለሁ። ይቀጥላል። የተሳካ እንደሆነ እንገነዘባለን።